Hello everybody, this is Garrett from 11 Bang Bang, and this is not the kind of video I usually do, or we do here, period. This is a response video to a comment, and I know you guys are out there saying, don't start getting petty. Well, I'm not getting petty. This is not an angry comment. This was not even a bad comment necessarily. This was just a comment that got me to thinking, and I'm not getting into politics or anything, but it got me thinking about the state of the world today, shall we say, as far as firearms is related. Now, not getting into politics, firearms is what our channel is all about, and the preservation of and the appreciation of historical firearms. So I'm not going to give you the name of the man who wrote this because I don't want anybody to go out there hating on him, but the comment was posted on a video I had made months ago about how that the Lyman Great Plains rifle and Hunter rifle were no longer going to be available, and how I felt that that was a bad thing because the options for side locks were getting less and less in the entry market. And there's a few things I need to mention that I should have mentioned in that video and I didn't. One is you can still get an Invest Arms. The only thing is they are not nearly as widespread available, I would say. You're not going to go into the big box store and see them generally, at least not where I'm from. And usually when you do see them, they're in kit form, which kind of turns a lot of people off. Whereas in the old days, I could walk into Walmart and you would see a Traditions there. You would see a CVA there. You would see a Great Plains there sometimes, especially if you got into like the bigger stores like Cabela's. And you would have all these options for closer to entry-level side locks. And they were available and people would pick them up, and they actually had a season for side locks. I mean, it was a season, it was muzzleloading season, and you know, people would get the side lock and go out and do traditional hunting. That was the whole idea for the season. And in the video I stated that I thought that the inlines, the modern inlines, were killing that hunting season, and a lot of people agreed with me. And one guy didn't, though. Now, I never said you shouldn't own an inline. I own an inline myself. I've had it since I was very young. I've just said that it shouldn't be allowed to completely replace the side lock like it has in a lot of places. Now, this is the comment I got. Like I said, not a bad comment, just a different point of view, and I want to share with you guys and share my thoughts on this comment. I've already answered this comment in the comment section, but I'm going to go ahead and read it right now and show it to you on the screen. My 2 cents. I do not agree with you or your commenters. The entire goal of a rifle is to hit your animal or target reliably and accurately. Some kit guns and made guns, whether flintlock or side locks, are not near as accurate as modern rifles or muzzleloaders. And that, my friend, is the truth, and you know it. I'd much rather see a moron with a new inline than a flintlock. I've helped to hunt down wounded animals shot by traditionalists many times, but never hardly with people using inlines. The past is the past. Now is the future. You can want till the cows come home, and it is what it is. I applaud the new, very accurate black powder guns. Seeing an animal suffer and die may be your thing, but it ain't mine. So you can go pretend you're living in the good old days, but you're not. I'm all into reenacting and all that, but not when it comes to hunting. The more accurate, the better. And trust me, morons are everywhere. I have 2 side locks and a custom-made Fowler by Gobbler Knob and an Optima inline. I'm looking hard at the new Remington 700 LSS Ultimate at $1,100. She is supposed to be the cat's meow. You know what all my old relatives told me? They said the good old days weren't so good. They like all the modern things like central air, dishwashers, and microwaves. Now put that in your pipe and smoke it. No hot water heaters, no running water, Johnny houses, kerosene lights, slopping the hogs, milking the cows, walking everywhere, no TV, no radio, no computers, the good old days. Peace. Now just let that sink in for just a minute, what he just said, and let's kind of break it down just a little bit. First of all, I do not agree that every modern rifle is better than a muzzleloader. Especially if you're back east, can you tell me what advantage you are going to have using a rifle in 30-06 at less than 100 yards, probably less than 50, what advantage does that give you over a cap lock in 54 or 58? Not much. And as for morons in the woods, I can tell you this right now. If someone is a moron who cannot ethically take a deer at less than 100 yards with a 54 or 58 caliber cap lock side lock rifle, now I'm not saying flintlocks, obviously there's a little bit more of a challenge there, not always, but a little bit more. If they can't do that, they shouldn't be out there hunting with anything. The gun has nothing to do with the quality of the person behind the trigger and their ability to hunt. That is their responsibility. That is the whole reason there is a muzzleloader season. We're not talking about modern rifle season. All right, let's talk about the inlines. I don't think that an inline is going to do you any better at less than 100 yards than a Hawken quote-unquote style rifle. Let's just get this straight right now. Patched round ball has been taking deer ethically, and yes, ethically, for 500 plus years. Let that sink in just a little bit. 500 years of taking deer ethically. Now, let's say, obviously, there is a bit of a difference to a 30-06 wound channel that there is to a 50 caliber round ball wound channel. But if that's your argument, then we have to completely remove bow season from the equation entirely, because I guarantee you the wound channel of a bow is not going to stand up to the wound channel of a 58 caliber round ball or even a 54 with a good heavy 100 grain load behind it. Am I saying that we should remove bow season? No, don't. Bow season archery is part of history. But guess what? It's way less likely that somebody's going to bring a deer home with a bow than they are with a 30-06 scoped rifle. Let's just face it. There's no comparison. So if your argument is we don't need to be hunting with side locks because they're less likely to ethically bring the deer home, and that me saying I like to hunt with a side lock is saying that I don't like to ethically harvest a deer, is the same as saying, nope, remove all bow season, even compound and crossbows, because obviously they're not going to do nearly as good a job on the deer as a modern either inline or cartridge firing rifle. Let's take this to the next level. No 30-30 should be used because obviously 300 Win Mag is going to do a more ethical job of bringing that deer down. You see where I'm going here? This is absolutely the most insane argument I have ever heard in the hunting sphere. Yes, you can absolutely ethically bring deer down with a patched round ball and a good heavy charge. It's been done since the beginning of firearms. So you know what my old relatives told me? They said the good old days weren't so good, like all the modern things like central air, dishwashers, microwaves. Now put that in your pipe and smoke it. No water heaters, no running water, Johnny houses, kerosene lights, slopping the hogs, milking the cows, walking everywhere, no TV, no radio, no computers, the good old days. Alright, so obviously I have running water, I have a hot water heater, and I have a computer because I'm talking to you here. So I'm going to tell you a little something though. I grew up not having rural water. I grew up in a house where there was a well out back of the house and a pump, and we drank the water right out of the ground. My mom and dad raised us that way. There were times, I remember mom and dad were poor, and they didn't have a lot. He was just a pastor, and there were times growing up in the middle of the winter, I remember the pump freezing up and breaking one year. And I rode a horse a mile down the road, and I would take 2 5-gallon got jugs, ride a horse down the middle of the road in the winter, because also that year for a couple months we were so bad off, our fuel pump went out of our Dodge van and we couldn't afford to fix it. They couldn't afford to get one. They were raising 17 kids. You know, at the time they had that many kids in the house, and things had gone bad in a hurry in the church, and something that couldn't have been foreseen ate all their savings, all their money up, and we were living hand to mouth, and our water went out, and it was out for the better part of a week. And I would take 2 5-gallon got jugs, throw him over the saddle of a horse we called Baby Doll, big old black mare who was goosey as could be, and I'd carry one water jug on each side. I'd ride about half a mile down the road to my uncle's house, where he had actually passed away, but his water was still on. He had rural water, and I would take and I would fill the water jugs at his hydrant, and I would bring them back, and that was our water. And it was a really rough couple weeks, but yes, I have lived in those situations. And you know what? If I didn't have a horse back then, it would have been a whole lot worse. But that's just what we were doing at the time. That's how I grew up. Now, was I living in the past then? No, I guarantee you I wanted to live in the future. But I had to live in the past, and I knew how to do it, and I had the equipment, the tools to make it work, right? And Dad I remember it was middle of the night, freezing. Dad scraped the money together by helping somebody do something, got what he needed to fix the pump. Middle of the freezing night, the wind was blowing. I remember looking out my window, the snow was blowing, and Dad and my grandpa were down in that pit fixing that pump. And they got it fixed. That's how I grew up. We had no heat outside of wood-burning stoves. And we just made it work. We made it work like the good old days that you say I pretend to live in. To this day, I live in a little miner's shack. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. Obviously, we've made it, as you can see around here, nice enough my wife and I have for ourselves. But this is a 100-plus-year-old house. And I could move elsewhere. And I probably actually am planning on moving to an even more remote location sometime soon. But this is how I live. This is the way I was brought up. This is the way I've learned to live. I love living this way. Guess what? As far as the rest of it goes, I don't have central heat and air. I heat my kitchen, and that's it. That's how I like to live. You guys will see me in here. In the wintertime, I'll be bundled up, and in the summertime, I'll be sweating when I'm on this recording right here. We heat the kitchen. We do have window air conditioner, but I never have had central air. It's not a big thing to me. It's not something I feel like I have to survive. Slopping the hogs. Every day of my life growing up, Mom and Dad had hogs. They still have hogs from time to time. Yep, still do that. Milking the cow. You know what? I spent last week, I spent 3 hours catching our milk cow that got out after a flood. Walked down the road, and we spent about 3 hours getting her angled and brought back. Yeah, I still do the milk cow thing. My wife doesn't have a dishwasher. Now, I've asked her before, would she like one? Because we could have one. And she says, no, there's just 2 of us. She says, I'll do the dishes by hand. There's no point tearing up the kitchen and incurring extra cost for something that's not that practical for us at this time. So, yeah, she still does the dishes by hand. Everything you said there, I'm not pretending to live in the past. I live in the past. And guess what? I love it. Obviously, I do have a computer. I have internet. But you know what? If that stuff left tomorrow, I wouldn't miss it that much, and I could get along just like I always have. Now, I don't know about this guy, but something tells me that if his water goes off, his electricity goes off, or his internet goes down, he's going to be in a world of hurt. I can make my own powder for a side load or a side lock or a cartridge gun at this point if I wanted to, but there's nothing wrong with living in the past. There's nothing wrong with the way our country was when the good old days were around. And I don't know about his relatives, but I can guarantee you I can talk to any of my relatives that were around in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and even in the Great Depression, they would have told me, and they did tell me, we were better off as a nation in 1938 than we are today. Why? Because we weren't so dependent on government. We weren't dependent on someone to make us a brand new plastic rifle that had great sights and could shoot so accurately. We weren't dependent on someone to make us brass cartridges. My grandpa went through the Depression with a muzzle-loading rifle and a slingshot. I'm not kidding you. A slingshot was how he brought meat to the table. This is the way I was brought up, and this is the way I'm guaranteeing you a lot of you that are watching this video was brought up. And this idea that we should do away with history and our traditional way of thinking and traditional firearms and just let the past be the past is the thing that has got us into trouble today. It's the thing that's got our country where it's at today. Alright, so that's kind of my little rant. I'm going to leave you with A little something from Jerry Clower here.
Folks, name of the game is love. L-O-V-E. Smartest man in the world said, it's better to eat poke salad than turnip greens, drink branch water out of a gourd dipper, live in a shotgun house and be dirt poor, but love one another. Heat better to love one another than to live in a mansion. Eat charbroiled ribeye steaks 3 times a day. All the money you can spend. Wash hole in the backyard. But you broiling and bickering and arguing and griping, and ain't no love in the home. Heat better to love one another and be poor than to live in a mansion and have everything in the world and all you got you cotton picking riches. I'd rather have love and be poor than all the riches and no love. You don't believe King Solomon said that? King Solomon said it. He's the smartest man in the world. He said, better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a stall-fed ox and hatred therewith. And I just told you in Route 4 Liberty, Mississippi, exactly what King Solomon said.
Trust in God. Keep your powder dry that you will be putting into a side lock gun, I'm sure. Bye.